welcome everybody. My name is John Davis. I'm the Managing Director of Levy UK and also of my venue portfolio. We're talking about specifically the subject, the fear of running out, the impact of food waste and the connection with global warming. Without further ado, let's talk about the burning issue. There's lots of questions in the food industry, in the events industry, that get very complicated and confusing. Single-use plastics, where we're sourcing the food, local supply chain. But essentially, what it all boils down to is climate change and the impact that we as a company, we as an industry, we as the events organisers can do to help influence and protect ourselves against what is an oncoming and very real disaster. If we reduce emissions, current emissions as it stands, by 25% by the year 2030, we will only increase global temperatures by 2 degrees. If we wanted to keep the rise to just 1.5 degrees, that would be a 45% reduction in current emissions, and that's emissions today with roughly about 7 billion people on this planet. By that day, 2030, we're forecast to rise to 10 billion people on this planet. So there has to be some pretty significant changes to the way we live our lives. Specifically, what we can do in our roles within the industry we're in is look at a couple of things which I'll talk to you about. What can we do? And we've tried to nail it into 2 key actions that myself and we as a company are really trying to focus on. The first one is, and it's been in the press, and I think it's starting to gain recognition now, that red meat consumption is both unhealthy to a certain degree, but also a huge influence on global warming and the emissions. Now, why is that? What the column on the left is showing you on the graph to the left is to produce 1,000 calories to be consumed by us. We need essentially 1,500 square acres footage to graze that cattle. Now, in the main, beef are grazed in areas that require deforestation, and obviously then have a massive impact in terms of the emissions that they also have. On average, we need to feed a cow 36,000 calories to produce 1,000 calories for us. Massively inefficient, as I'm sure you'd agree. Around 25% to 30% of all grain that's grown in the world goes to feeding cattle. Again, a massively inefficient way to run the food chain. The global food system is responsible for 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. That's more than the combined effect of the transport sector, for example. So all the planes, the cars, the trains of this world, we, as in myself, in the food industry and on a wider scale events industry, how we treat food and beverage, this is a massive impact on global warming and emissions. Secondly, so moving on from red meat, we go into food waste, and that is really the meat of the topic that we're going to be debating on the panel today, and the impact of food waste and what we can do about it. And really, in the meeting industry, and the conference industry, and the banqueting industry, the question we're asking today, is it okay to run out? So what is this graph telling us? You won't be able to read that, but basically it's saying we're very wasteful. You know, whether it happens at the production, or in terms of the agricultural production, or in the preparation, as the caterers, or the waste at the end of the event, 1/3 of all food, it does not get eaten by ourselves. So what can we do about it? Because I'm not here just to scare you and talk maybe subjects you're already aware of. We should be looking at solutions and how we can improve. Eat food. Eat food means eat real food. Don't eat processed food. Don't eat packaged food. Eat food that is created fresh by hand, yourself, or by a company on your behalf that is enough for you to consume. Not too much. I think that goes to the food waste argument, but also goes to our own health and well-being. We should not be over-consuming the types of food we're eating, or over-consuming the calorific values that we are. And finally, mostly plants. No one's suggesting that everyone should become a vegan overnight, although it's a trend that is rising, and I don't think will go away. But mostly plants is saying that we are adopting, as a society, more flexitarian attitudes. So as we as a company in the event industry are trying to create dishes and menus that are more plant forward. What does that mean? We can still use red meat, we can still use a lot of other dairy products. breaks, but use them sparingly. You know, in my view, we should be treating beef in the same way that we treat champagne as a luxury. It should be used as a garnishing dish, it's not the main ingredient. We should be promoting and talking about plant-forward dishes in an exciting, highly vibrant, highly visual way. How we create food and serve food at events needs to change. You know, traditionally, and again going back 20 years I've been here, a lot of the production of food happens back of house, and then all gets laid out for lunch. The chefs all go then for a cigarette break for two hours, and the food is on display. In reality, what should happen is a lot more food needs to be batch cooked, it needs to be live cooked. The chefs need to come front of house into the environment. We need better equipment that holds food. We need better equipment that allows food to be finished to a certain degree to order within a live environment. Menus need to be more concise. We need to be unafraid to tell our customers who are booking at the agency to cook that actually having a small, concise menu will help with food waste. Giving a full menu all the time to all the people will only create more food waste. In the same way that we, as a caterer, for example, need to be mindful that the eating habits and allergens and dietary requirements have completely changed. And then technology, you know, in terms of how we use order points. This could be standard catering the exhibitions, this could be using flexible ordering, this could be, instead of emailing everyone out before a banquet, using technology to allow us to understand our dietary and menu requests way before the event. So if I can invite onto the stage the panel now, Anna Golding from Olympia, the commercial director, John Kelly, marketing director of ECD, Meeting Events, Emily Durwood of Barclays, event manager, and Paul Jennings, our culinary director here in the UK.
The wording of the menus, the way that we tell the story, I think some of the cleverer menus out there that when you first read them you would think they were vegetarian, and actually when you kind of read it through the second or third time you'll actually pick up the protein elements within the description. So I think it is about, you know, whilst our ambition may be in the future to kind of take it down to zero, I think there's certain steps that we can take between where we are now and that point. And just as I said, use the protein, use it sparingly. We're almost going back to how we used to eat. I think that's the irony of it. One of the things that we've worked on recently is kind of our mindful meetings package. So that is very much about, you know, the healthier style of eating. How many times have you been to a sort of a conference and there's the ubiquitous sandwich and you just sit there and actually you kind of come away feeling a little bit bloated, a little bit and now I've got to sit through an afternoon session. So actually let's liven it up, let's get some really good vibrant salads, some really good comfort food out there, get the juices flowing, but actually we might embellish or garnish that with a particular protein item. So we're still getting the best of both worlds, there's still an element of it there, but actually it's probably more like it was supposed to be in the first place.
If you compared plants to red meat from this country, you know, if you're on a red meat diet, your impact on global warming is about 30 times more than if you're on a purely vegan diet. So there is no comparison like for like between plants and red meat in that scenario, but it's quite right to say that there is a lot of produce that gets shipped into this country. If you are eating, I don't know, sugar snap peas, for example, in the main they'll have come from Kenya and they'll have to be flown in to this country. And it's something that we as a company are looking at. We're trying to lock down our supply chain. We're trying to say that if it comes in a plane, we shouldn't be using it. I think that's the right and sensible approach. It's a mindset change because we've been doing this for so long in our industry, our chefs have been doing it for so long, and it was been seen as the right thing to do for so long. It does take us to all stand back and really evaluate where is our food coming from and how should we be using it.
And this just goes back to us being a bit bolder. You know, we order the amount of food that we need, and when it's gone, it's gone. And you know, and not having this expectation that it always needs to look full and that kind of thing. And instead of settling for that, I think we need to own it and use it as a selling point of our events. That you know, that's what we're doing instead of it being negative.
It's always going to be a concern. You want to make sure that everybody's well fed as a rule. It's one of the points that feedback you always get from an event tends to be about those factors. Catering typically always commented on positively and negatively because it seems to be a really important part of the day, and I think we need to take the onus of that. You don't eat that much food every day of the week, so why, when you come to a conference, do feel the need to have so much food and so many breaks. And I think it's about being cleverer, being much more flexible with the menu. Having bulk food helps, because if you run out of something, you may be able to go to your store cupboard and create something else. It doesn't have to be specific to that menu, but you're still feeding everybody. And I think just as Emily said, I think it's about educating the delegates that we've catered for everybody and we're not going to cater in excess, and actually empty bowls and finished food is a good thing. It means less plate waste, and that's a huge issue.
And actually, by changing the type of food and the style of food and the nature of the delivery of that food, it can actually help facilitate the overall experience of those events. I think that's how we need to get the end user to buy into that and not see bowl food as a cheaper option.
There's nothing worse in an event scenario where you have a food station that looks like it's run out of food or it's empty or it's closed. Because kind of I suppose the embarrassment of having to clear that down and just having it sit there is probably why we over-order. So the bowl food option is a fantastic way of doing that. One, it gives you better portion control, but also if you do, like say, if there is something that's popular, then you're able to perhaps react differently to, by producing an extra dish or whatever it may be, or you might take a conscious decision to not replace it. But it's not so in your face, I suppose, is the word I'm looking for.
As I mentioned, we can use apps like Olio, and they're actually really good at helping you and advising you on how to use them. So it wouldn't work for something like a hot buffet, but if you had a cold buffet and you only brought stuff out when you were really running out, and it stays in the fridge and it creates that opportunity for food that they need, there's lots of advice there that they are really up for giving. And I think there's definitely always going to be some element of waste, and there is a way of using that waste for good, then we will try to do it.
I think there are some great programs out there already. I think if we go back, it's probably ahead of his time. Sam Rogan, was going back to sourcing ingredients from within the UK. His menu only contained ingredients that you can get in the UK. It didn't use lemons. Used sort of vinegars and other acids in that way. So kind of he was probably ahead of his time. I think Chantal Nixon, another great example. Bryn Williams, I think his restaurant at Sunset House and the way that he's worded his menus there, I think, and some of the dishes that he's created are fantastic. And certainly I'm right behind it. I think it's certainly changed the way that I think about food.
The truth is, this is a generational shift. 18 to 24-year-olds, 20% of those people in that generation are eating a vegetarian and vegan diet. So that they are the customers of the future. They are your customers, the venue's customers, the booking, our employees, our future delegates. That will only increase as they get older and enter the workplace.
Yeah, because we work with a lot of global clients, it's a global agenda for them, and it's, as I keep saying, it's not going to go away. So we are seeing it literally everywhere. There's not one country you think, well, we'll forget about those, we'll come back to them and help them out later. It's globally with us right now.
It's about the quality of the waste as well, so you want to make sure that it's not contaminated. I think it's really important with food waste. Our food waste goes to reusable energy and fertiliser. It needs to, all of that's very important, and it's all about educating. So, to have something like here where you've got that recycling at source visible to everyone and educating everybody, I think that needs to be across all of our events, and people really start to appreciate what, as an industry, we're trying to do to reduce our waste and then embrace it. I think really have visibility, so when you come to an event you can see how things are being recycled, what we're doing with waste, the zero to landfill point, all of those needs to be visible and front of house so people can really embrace it and understand it.
The obvious thing is just to make it much clearer to the end user what we're doing, why it's having a positive benefit, because education is the most powerful tool.
You can get certification and you can spend tens of thousands of pounds getting that certification, and that's great. And you can do a CSR policy and it looks great, your annual report. Fantastic. The reality is there's no plan B. We need to get this right now, so everyone needs to be doing things. Don't wait to be certified, start doing it now. And shout about it that you're doing it. Put it in your annual report. Don't wait for others to show you the way necessarily. Everyone can do something today, tomorrow, that will make a bloody big difference. We need to be bolder, we need to work a lot closer with you guys to say, we have 300, can we cater for 300 and no more? And that goes back, then the cost changes. Because at the moment, you know, contracted for 500, you're charging us 500. You know, if we charge a client for 500, everyone moves on, everyone's happy. There's 200 ways. It's going to everyone. You know, and I think there's a lot of SMEs that are involved and are really driving it because, you know, they can be passionate about it and they can move quicker than perhaps some bigger corporates. But, you know, like I was talking to someone earlier, the big hotel chains are driving sustainability right now, and it's the smaller chains that are actually playing catch up. And I think that, you know, there's still an element that everyone needs to get on board.
It's about challenging yourself, I think. I think fear of running out should be replaced with fear of getting it wrong. Because I think particularly as a large company, I think it's everyone present. I think you're out there for everyone to see, so those slight mistakes, you know, are multiplied. And I think to your point earlier, we're all learning. I think that's the key thing for me. So.
I think what we're saying is that food waste and red meat consumption have the biggest impact. If we change on those two things, they're the levers that will have the most effect.
In terms of looking at sustainability, you know, across an event from plastic to food to how people get there, to what suppliers we're using, we're creating a survey that every event manager will need to fill in after an event, and it will give you a bronze, silver, or gold scoring that we then need to put in our reporting system where we close off the budget and all of that kind of admin. And it's a mandatory thing that we're going to get across all of our events.
I think from a commercial perspective, I think my focus is how we educate everybody, how we educate our customers and how they educate their delegates to expect change at conferences and meetings. We provide these really fantastic environments for a short period of time for education and for understanding, and we do create a great deal of waste as an events industry. And I think food waste is hugely important, as with everything else. But I think if we can change the way we deliver food at conferences and events, that will go a huge step to meeting the targets that John's mentioned.
We know we can't change the world ourselves, but I think from our perspective it's important that we all do something and we try and create a bit of bandwagon, because as John has pointed out, you know, we've got a big problem, not just as an industry, but I guess almost as a species. So it's important that we all start doing something.
I think we need to realise the culture of change across the culinary world, and I think we need to work with our clients and customers and educate them on ways to, I suppose, limit the amount of waste that's generated through cooking and through our events business. You know, chefs are really excited to get out and about, out front, interacting with the guests and their clients, and really showing off their skills. I think that's something that's probably didn't previously. What that's enabled us to do as well is that it's enabled us, rather than sort of racking and stacking and delivering large amounts of food, it's enabled us to kind of break that down into a kind of a more intimate experience. I think is probably the way to put it. Less is more. I think in terms of menus, I think we're very good as a society at adding, but we don't often look back and go, actually, you know, what are we actually doing here? What's our strategy? What's our target markets? How can we be more efficient? How can we do better with less?
Yeah, I think it's about us all taking responsibility. So it is education. We need to, and we touched upon the sort of old-fashioned style of conferencing, and for whatever reason, when you attend a conference, you eat and drink far more than you do on a normal day. And I think we just need to change and re-educate and manage people's expectations.
It's up to, you know, the delegate to be asking the question, you know, what am I going to be having here? How can I be part of that journey to ensure that, you know, when I'm going to this event, I'm taking my plastic cup, my reusable water, whatever. It's the corporate, you know, to ensure that they're talking to their event management company and insisting that it's on the agenda. It's the event management company to ensure that they're always offering multiple choices on food, so you always have a sustainable or a green option. It's venue, caterers, etc. Everyone needs to do something. You know, it can't be just down to the event management company pushing it as part of another agenda, or the caterers who may be accused of, you know, improving their margins and still charging the same amount or whatever. Every single person attends an event, every single constituent part of that event needs to take responsibility for this.
The challenge is when you know, we really want to be more sustainable. You know, we really want to create a more sustainable experience. And the business hosts, it's so low on their priority list. It's all about client experience, and you know, the thought of running out of food would just be the worst thing. But what we're talking about at the moment is creating a bit of a be bold strategy. And we do say about these events, we're not having any single-use plastic like when you're bringing it up with you. You know, we're not going to serve red meat at any event now, unless it's a small dinner. That kind of thing, just being really bold.
I think if we put forward as our first and best options menus that are far more sustainable, so less options, maybe going more to bold food and food that's more transferable, that we can use, reuse. I know you said food sat on a buffet then becomes waste, so how can we avoid that? And if we put that as our first option, and our other options come further down, I think the onus is on us as a venue and you as an event manager to encourage a change. And I think we have to be bold about it. I think it's too easy and too safe to say, oh well, that's what we used to do, so we have to replicate in Europe.